We are ready to get to rolling. Thank you so much for your patience. Nothing like coming in and not having internet for our, hybrid meetings. So there are legal requirements. If they were going to be hybrid, then we need to be hybrid. So thank you to all of our awesome county staff for
Justin. Yeah.
Woo, all
I think
right.
Justin's the
Otherwise
reason why
we
we're
were-
meeting. So
Yeah, otherwise we're gonna have to cancel. So thank you for your patience. I'm Andy Pease. I'm the chair of this meeting and I'm calling it to order. This is our San Luis Obispo County Flood Control and Water Conservation District Water Resources Advisory Committee, WRAC, for today, Wednesday, September 6th, 2023. And we'll go ahead and do introductions for a sec, but if you just want to establish quorum. If you are a voting member here today, could you please raise your hand? And do you want to do, or shall you pick it up as we do a welcome? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do all of our welcomes first here in the room. If you could say your name and your organization slowly enough so that Brendan, who usually takes care of this as everybody's walking in the room, has time to mark attendance, that would be appreciated. So Andy Pease, City of San Luis Obispo and current chair.
Tom Burhan, District 4, Vice Chair.
Matt Cook, Golden State Water.
Environmental and Law.
Eddie Evie, almost CSD.
David Shipping, Environmental Watch.
Lyndon Shipping, Coastal San Luis RCD.
Will Clemens, Oceano CSD.
Dominic Brock, RCD alternate.
Lee Nesbitt, EPC.
Steve Carter, Slow County Pump Bureau.
Eric Green, Environmental at Large.
Dolores Howard, Environmental at Large alternate.
Mark Saber. Ron Lance, Social Steve.
Steve Simpson, Chairman, San Juan Water District. Now, Duckworth, 5th District.
Tristan Reaver, CSD. Radiance, CSD.
Mario Iglesias, the former CSD, retired. Pending.
Deborah Logan, Templeton CSD.
Scott Duffield, Heritage Ranch, CSD.
Patricia Wilmore, Paso Robles One Country Alliance.
John Winstead, your professional services, my first meeting as a member, so thank you.
Aaron Floyd, City of San Luis Obispo.
Nick Teague, City of San Luis Obispo.
Matt Anderson, City of San Luis Obispo.
Josh Porter, County of San Luis Obispo.
Joey Style, County of San Luis Obispo. And Brendan Clark, County.
Great, let me call on our folks online. I think it's mostly, let's see, Tim, if you want to, I'll just call on each of you if you could say your name and organization.
Tim Kirchhoff, Letharis geologist.
Thank you. Jenny.
Jenny Williamson, County of SLO Public Works.
And then there's a connecting to audio. I don't know if that's somebody.
Greg Paul, member of the public.
Sorry, hold on.
Hard to surf it. You can surf, but but if you're doing what he's doing.
Okay, so apologies, there were more on here than I could see in my screen. I've totally missed a ton of people, so I think because I'm not, okay, so I got Jenny, Greg, Paul.
He said he did.
He did?
He just went. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Brendan, Tim. We got Toby.
Yes, good afternoon. Toby Moore, Golden State Water Company.
Thank you. Corey.
Corey Bird, County of SLO.
Thank you. Thanks. Anthony.
Hi, my name is Anthony Simo with Kroll Engineers.
Great. Courtney.
Hi, Courtney Howard, Water Resources Division Manager and Public Works for the county.
Thank you. And then is there anybody online that I missed? Okay, I think we did it. Thanks, everyone. All right, next order of business is discussion approval of the June 7th meeting minutes. We of course take off July and August, so to June 7th was our last meeting. Any comments on the minutes? Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion. I look to Christine. No comments.
Maybe approved as,
As-
accept approval as presented.
Excellent. So we have a motion from Christine Mulholland. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. And voice vote, or do you want a roll call?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, all in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thanks, everyone. All right, and so then our next item here is to receive a presentation from City of San Luis Obispo on the Water Resource Recovery Facility project. We have staff in here to make a presentation as we do our kind of regular ongoing updates for items themselves. So thank you. I'm gonna turn this.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Matt Anderson from the City of San Luis Obispo. I'm the lab manager, and I'm here to give the project update for the Water Resource Recovery Facility project. So this site has been active in wastewater treatment and nutrient recovery for over 100 years. So 1926, fairly simple treatment of headworks, a digester, clarifier, and a sludge drying bed. 1941, treatment advanced with trickling filter, and then the discharge was used for irrigation of fruit and nut orchards. And if you notice, there's a digester in the back there that will show up again later in the presentation. 1994, quite a large upgrade, and that was to protect the aquatic species of San Luis Obispo Creek. The big portion of that project was adding an activated sludge unit that converted nitrate to the least toxic nitrogen form of, ammonia to the least toxic form of nitrate. And then in 2003, the city added recycled water treatment. We brought 2 additional chlorine contact channels for disinfection, added a recycled water storage tank, and then also a delivery system. 2015, the city partnered with PG&E for a sustainable solutions turnkey project. The big one, a little harder to see in the back there, but that is an internal combustion engine that runs on biogas that then produces electricity for the wharf. All right, and then with this project, I really wanted to sneak in the program charter there. That was the guiding document that we started the project with. It brought alignment between city leadership, the design team, and then also the operations and the maintenance. Kind of hard to see in the blurry background, but we do have, there's a picture of the city manager, city council, operations staff, and then our engineering team also. The big thing about the program charter, it brought us to all agree that
Best of luck with that.
with the triple bottom line. And that's the economic portion of it. We need to optimize the ratepayers investment. And then we need to review the life cycle cost of every decision we make. The environmental aspect, we need to maintain compliance not only today, but into the future. And then also support major city goals like the climate action plan. And on the social aspect, we want to be a good neighbor, minimize odors, do what we can to minimize traffic, and then also support the development of city staff. All right. So with the existing treatment flow, wastewater is generated households, businesses within city limits. It is then brought to, conveyed to the treatment facility. About 10% right now is converted, of that wastewater is converted to irrigation use or recycled water. And then the remaining 90% goes to San Luis Obispo Creek and out to Avila Beach. If I can kind of walk everybody through to get our bearings straight here. So this is 101, and then at the top part of the slide here is Prado Road. And if that's all right, I'll just walk through. One of the biggest things done, we added or upgraded our equalization pond, and that really gives the operators flexibility to control how they want to treat that water during big storm events. As we go to green, those were the primary clarifiers that we saw in the front foreground picture of 1941. They are going to be upgraded as part of this project. And then as we go to the left over there, we were also adding 2 new bioreactors, or the biological treatment process. And then that biologically treated water through the next green box right up there is going to be treated through a hollow, sorry. All right, this one right here. We're adding a hollow fiber tube membrane filtration system, and that gets rid of a clarifier system that we have and the current gravity filters that are about here on the project. And then one of the other biggest portions, the ultraviolet disinfection system. And so that is going to replace our old chlorinating system. And out here in the bottom corner, our cooling towers have been moved and relocated. So we only cool water that's going to go to San Luis Obispo Creek to protect the cold water fishery habitat. And then some of the smaller ones over here, our digesters are being modified to improve heating, to improve mixing, and ultimately produce more biogas for us. And then as part of being the good neighbor, the digester that was shown in the picture from the 1920s, that is being converted now to a new air scrubber to improve odors that we do leave the facility. So we're part of this project. As we're removing chlorine from our system, we should remove 3 to 4 tanker trucks per week from coming to the site. And then, as I mentioned, the biogas production is going to increase with better heating and better mixing of the solid that we do have on site. And it's kind of hard to see here. So
sorry, can you go backwards just one? I want to make sure. Biogas, please, more energy. Okay, thanks.
So this picture is one of the designs showing the effects of a 100-year storm event on San Luis Obispo Creek and on 35 Prado Road. So part of the design of this upgrade, water is still going to have to come through the facility. The facility will be protected. And at the same time, too, we're not just going to shed and push all of that flood water onto our neighbors. So like I said, one of the big ones was the equalization basin expansion. And this was a key decision that was made to get this done before the wet season occurred. As we see, this was the 40-year storm event that we went through in January. And with our old equalization basin, and then this one that now can hold approximately 9 million gallons of water, it allowed the facility to safely treat a peak flow of 26 million gallons per day. And I'll be honest, this was a stock photo I stole. This is a hollow fiber membrane filtration system. ZWEED is the technical name. And so all of this together makes one full cassette. And then this is our facility today during clean water testing. So we have 6 trains, and each train is made of 6 cassettes. And then to protect those fibers, we have also added a 2mm screen upstream, so that will remove hair or seeds, anything we don't want to compromise that fiber. And then this is the pumps that drive the suction to create that clean water and pull it through those fibers. Like I mentioned, we have 6 trains, so we do have 6 pumping stations. And our upgraded bioreactor system. So this is the biological process that is now going to help us discharge a lower amount of nitrogen into San Luis Obispo Creek and ultimately in our recycled water too. The foreground, this is our newest bioreactor. Here is where nitrate is removed, and then where we have these headers bringing compressed air, ammonia will be converted to nitrate back there. And then this is the remaining bioreactors from the 1990 upgrade. They're going to be converted now to also remove nitrate in the future. And our new UV disinfection system, we have 9 vessels. And then kind of hard to see the back end here. So this is where I believe there's 60 UV bulbs in each vessel to disinfect the water. I tried to get a good picture here. Our recycled water system, we are still generating recycled water under a master permit, so we still need to have chlorine contact time. So that water that's been through that membrane hollow tube fiber has been UV treated, still has to receive chlorination. The good thing is we are seeing a really low chlorine demand on that water. And if you can see here, right, the reflection is really clear and clean. And then my last few parts, the updates. So this is our primary clarifier. We've added some covers to minimize odors. Our electrical system has been upgraded. We have a new diesel generator on site to power everything during any kind of power outage. Cooling towers that have been moved most downstream to be most energy efficient. And then this is going to be the process that is going to feed solids to our new digesters and ideally produce more biogas and more electricity. Like I said, my lessons learned on this project, I think it all comes back to communication. It's one, right, having the alignment on that program charter from city leadership down to city staff and including those outside partners. One thing that I really like with the partners we have had with the communication, we've had plans of the week that say what excavations are going to happen, and that's what you can kind of see in red. And then that in turn turns into a circulation map. And then that is communicated with our other partners, like we have the bus yard here that was kind of held captive. We still have the city corporation yard here, and just to make sure everybody knows what's going on when. And our big internal one, and I got to give a lot of credit to our program manager, we have an information bulletin, and we have a meeting every week where we discuss any upcoming projects internally first. The goal of this is to prevent change orders and to identify either what needs to be handled by the contractor or what we can handle internally. And it's just kind of created a database. We've got a number, we've got an item, who's responsible, a due date, and then any notes on that specific line item. And just, like I said, having that constant communication has kept everybody going in the same direction. And let's see, this is on the right, the time lapse of what a day is like at 35.
I'm curious, I've seen those sliced drying ponds, which I usually see in sewage treatment plants. So your solids, your toilet paper and dead goldfish, where do they go, you know, in this?
So, right, really simply, we separate the solids from the liquids. The solids process is treated anaerobically with microorganisms that are going to break it down, produce methane. That remaining solid product, we try and de-water that as make it as dry as possible, and that goes to a composter, England Grey, and it becomes harvest blend and leaves the trade name of that product, so it becomes compost.
Is there, you're talking about the sludge there at the end?
Yes.
And so are these updates going to result in any changes to the quantity or quality of the sludge?
Quantity, to not get too deep into the woods here, down the rabbit hole, it should create more biosolids. With those new bioreactors, we're going to have a bigger biomass to help remove that nitrate from the water. I'm not exactly sure yet how much of that biomass is going to be converted to solids at the end of the process. On the quality, we should potentially see less nitrogen. It should still be a source of phosphorus, still be a carbon source. And then when it comes to other pollutants, our pre-treatment program that we have should still prevent those chemicals and toxicants from entering the wastewater system. So,
You mean like heavy metals and that sort of thing?
correct, yes.
Thank you.
So does the nitrogen, does it go away with the solvents then?
So the way the bioreactor works, we're going to send it this really rich nitrate water. We're going to remove the oxygen from it, and then the microorganisms have to rip apart the nitrate to get that out oxygen they need, and then the nitrogen gas will be released to the atmosphere.
What's the difference between your minimum discharge requirements for fish and game for fish in the creek and the excess water that you're producing, and how much water is going down the creek that could be used, for example, in the valley to sustain the pressing groundwater situation I have there.
Okay, let me remember that. I think it's 1,700 acre feet a year is required to the creek, and I think we have about 1,400, including storm flows on an annualized. I think that's it. I can't quite remember. I think that's about where it's at right now.
So that is that being discussed in regard to all these issues on the groundwater base in the valley and all that kind of thing? Is that a source for example, the vigilance or anything else like that?
So staff did bring an item to council at the end of last year and then the beginning of 2023 on a recycled water maximization plan. And it actually did outline a process by which the city is contemplating parties who might be interested in utilization of that water. So we expect to see, we have a last minute consultant wrap up on this probably early next week. And then we'll be sending out a request for interested parties to those around the San Luis Obispo area who might be interested in purchasing recycled water on a short-term basis from the city. We'll see though, and there's still a lot of negotiations and a lot of work to be done on this. This is brave new territory for us, selling recycled water outside of our service area. There's a pretty detailed plan on the city website for the council archive report, and it's under recycled water maximization.
My question was going to be right along that line too, about the reclaimed water. And is there any future plans for expanding its use within the city and parks and using? To me, the basin was drained by ag interests, and I don't think that we, the city, who spent millions of dollars for decades creating reclaimed water for our citizens and to have clean enough water to go down the creek to maintain the habitat, that is what we intended for our water use, to support people who have overused their own groundwater basin already and now take the city's water, which we pay to import, to bring, to clean, to run through our systems, and then get to this, and then have something to sell. I mean, I understand that it went to the council, but I don't know where the discussion in the community is at on this. And so I would be encouraging myself to, and go back to the one question I actually proposed was, are you going to be building more distribution opportunities within the city?
Yeah, so we actually, as part of that recycled water maximization plan, they actually not only outline the non-potable uses that we're currently doing with our purple pipe or our recycled water system, but it also talks about perhaps going towards an indirect potable reuse or even a direct potable reuse in the future, which is why the third part of that is, what do you do in that interim time? What is that strategy now, as we're still developing those other processes of expanding recycled water and perhaps direct potable reuse or indirect reuse on that. So we do have capital improvement projects that are supportive of expansion of that recycled water. Any new development within the city, especially on the southern sides of San Luis Ranch, Owl Ranch, they are all required to utilize that purple pipe right there. So we do see, a future in which we continue to expand that out. And to your point, that is why those outside city deliveries are being considered only on those, shorter term temporary contract time frames right there, because we understand the ultimate use the city council adopted. Ultimate use is the best use inside the city for that water.
And and no, that was exactly what I would have added. Also, that the condition is full cost recovery for the was part of the council direction on that, because there is public investment that is being made. So, yeah.
So do I understand that there's still a chlorine requirement even at the ultraviolet light?
Yes, for recycled water, right? There is. For the permit that we have to generate Title 22 recycled water, we still need to have a specific amount of chlorine contact time with that water.
And that water is what's in your purple pipeline.
Correct.
And will that change when the whole system is complete? Do we get a new permit for the recycled water?
It's in the works, yes. The process is, we're in process. Yes.
Proceeding.
Right. Other questions?
You may have mentioned that I didn't hear the cost of these improvements.
$12. Really a deal.
So I'm just the lab manager. Been on the outside of this, so I will.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I want to say, I believe the original bids came in between 110 and 120 million dollars.
That's exactly it. So it's about 110 for the construction part. The whole project is about $140 million in total. We had that grants to offset some of the costs on it. We've received grants for helping with flood mitigation. We are thankful the time in which we built this was before a lot of the inflation really kicked up, as well as we have a really favorable interest rate on our SRF loan. So mid 1 point range, which right now looks incredible to see that kind of interest rate. So the city was really fortunate in its timing, so it really did help to minimize those costs, especially compared to what we're seeing nowadays on some of these projects.
Right. And ultimately, the higher quality of the discharged water just overall supports all that water reuse potential that we've been talking about.
It's under budget right now.
On time.
Yeah, about 80% done with the project, the major stuff done, still under budget, and time is right there still, so we're looking good.
That was my question, what
It-
percent complete? 80%?
About 85%. So we're expecting, we've already started discharge to the creek from the new process. So that was the major milestone in which to get in front of the disinfection byproducts right there. So that was a major milestone we hit. End of this year, we're expecting, end of this year, early 24, significant construction, and then probably about through mid 2024, doing the finalization of everything, turning it over, cleaning the site back up. As you can see from these pictures, we usually don't have it looking like a dust bowl up there. It's usually a nice manicured place. So there's a lot of that work to put the site back together. It was a major project. So
It's funny, you guys talking about it in past tense, but it's not complete, that's what.
Oh, no,
It was
it's-
a major project, it is a major.
yeah, it doesn't look, I mean, that picture right there, so the crane is gone, but it still looks equally torn up like that.
So yeah, Dominic, we've kind of broken it up into like 2 liquids phases. So the first big liquids phase is online right now, where we are complying with the 10 milligram per liter nitrate effluent limit. We are complying with the less than 1 part per billion disinfection byproduct limit. We're just working on getting the next 2 bioreactors going so we can have capacity for that next 16, 20 million gallon floating. So, and then the solids process is also kind of its own independent train going at the same time.
Does this system clear out any PFAS that might be getting into the effluent from our homes?
I'll be careful on this. There's the potential with the, so we're gonna have a little bit of a different beast with the activated sludge process. It's going to be 4 to 5 times thicker, so there is the potential for adsorption to occur with more biological material we have in the treatment process, but we don't know until we test. We did participate in the water boards. We had a mandated study in 2020 where we looked at the influence, the effluent, the biosolids. We didn't have a lot of predictable hits or repeat hits that happened with PFAS at our facility. So I guess that's probably the next big direction you'll see stabilize is on the source control. Yeah, if we can control it at the source and just keep it out of the sewer systems. Our big hope and dreams.
Any other questions in the room? Anybody online have a question or comment? All right. I will also say, to David's point about the required discharge to the creek, is it is interesting to me, kind of coming in new to this, that the discharge is required the same every day of the year as opposed to the natural hydrology of the creek. And I think it's it's like things that make you go, huh. So not that we're you know, messing with that charge right now, but just kind of like, I think about that sometimes and wonder, like, is that the best use as we can recycle more? Does it make sense to have our discharge more match a natural hydrology so that we can get the utilization when we do have more water and can use it? So interesting point.
For some reason, I have this figure in my mind from many years ago, 1.74 cubic
Cubic feet
per second was required when that court decision came down. Is that approximately correct? That figure is old, but it's in my mind for some reason. That was the adjudicated reaction, but that has to be regularly. But then, as we make more, it's seasonal anyway. The creek takes whatever is coming, and you have to have your minimum. It's all that's required to maintain habitat. But you know, floods come, whether we're putting in extra reclaimed water or the sky opens up, the creek.
Right, but we're still feeding that amount into it, even if it's also getting lots of water by rains, and you know what I mean? There's just, yeah.
But
Yeah.
until you have other places to
Exactly.
put it, you know, that's kind of a moot question, because you can't just throw it away.
Right.
Any other way.
Right. Yeah. David, and then we'll wrap up.
I was wondering about the other end, that is that a lot of sewage treatment plants, especially on the East Coast, have trouble with stormwater infiltration into their blackwater systems. And I was wondering how well the city has stopped leakage into the system upstream of the plant.
Well, that's a good question. As you can see by Matt's picture he had up there earlier of that equalization basin, we needed every last bit of that capacity in the big storms we had in January and March of this past year. So the city has made a lot of efforts towards that, and that's the reason we didn't have any spillage. But it's important to remember that about half of the collection system in the city of San Luis Obispo is actually privately owned. So all of those laterals that come from the houses out in Connect that have never been maintained, those are probably some of the bigger driving factors. So to get at that, the city does have a sewer lateral replacement program. We actually offer incentives for people to replace their laterals. We can show you the condition of it somewhat on some of our databases that we have on our websites. So those are the kind of things. We're actually doing another flow study this year to see if we can stay in front of those flows. You know, we have a lot of older pipes offset, roots come in, so we are getting in front of it. We'll see if all of our capital projects as well as the work that we've done help us gain on that, but that's going to be an ongoing fight for years to come. If we go from an average flow of about 2.5 million gallons a day to 25 million gallons a day on a big major flood like that. So.
All right, I said last question, but Eric, you haven't, go ahead.
Just in defense of the constant flow, the natural regime before the water table dropped probably was not ephemeral. Otherwise, there would not have been Shumash villages along it. And so when we talk about natural versus constant flow, I think it's important to recognize that natural flow was not necessarily ephemeral, and that maintaining a temperature that creatures can live in is an important virtue of a certain continuous flow at this time. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Right, spring inspired, spring forced. So, all right. Thank you so much. That was awesome. All right, and if any of our WRAC members have projects that they are working on that you think would be a good presentation update, I think it's really inspiring for all of us to hear from each other on projects, even, you know, things that go well or don't go well. We're happy to hear it. So please let any of us know if you have a topic that you'd be willing to present on for the good of the order. All right, next item is to receive an update from the ad hoc committee on the water sections of the Dana Reserve, the EIR, and consider action. So, so Linda, I think, are you going to take point, kind of introduce the letter that was part of the packet, and then if we, the kind of action that we might consider would be forwarding it to the, with a cover letter to the Board of Supervisors. So, Cindy, you want to come up?
Just take a couple minutes.
Yep, come on up.
Well, the ad hoc committee met on August 15th. And we reviewed if you will notice in your packet, there is a 2-page comment from the ad hoc committee. It's pretty succinct. It was a quick meeting in terms of there were no questions about what might not have been available to look at. We took a couple hours and pretty much all agreed with certain aspects of the project, and I've summarized them here for you. In summary, there's no substantial issues associated with the water supply and the wastewater disposal as the project has been proposed. There is adequate water. It's all imported, and the POMO CSD has done a very good job of making sure that they have imported water from Santa Maria, and an additional
reserves.
Yes, oh, sorry, that's just not coming. Anyway, they have the additional option of, in addition to getting the 2,500 acre-feet that they get from Santa Maria, in the future asking for another 3,200 acre-feet. So they've got more than enough water. The project doesn't use any groundwater whatsoever. All of the water that is used by the project will be transported to the South County wastewater treatment plant. The plant itself will need an upgrade of about to the tune of $20 million. And then the infrastructure in terms of pipes for water supply and return will be another $19 or $20 million, which the project proponent will be covering. There are plenty of opportunities for the recycled water, which will be coming back to be used, but those are not a part of the project, so they weren't really reviewed, but they were mentioned, and it will be up to NCSD and future development in terms of how those are used. Yeah. I don't think there's anything else. I think that pretty well covers it.
Yeah. Any questions on either the process of the committee or the project itself? Anybody online? No. All right, Ed. And then
I just, not a question, comment. I got through reading the tentative agreement between the county and the developer for conditions of approval for the specific plant plan, and all of the issues about the supplying of water, who pays for the infrastructure improvements, and so forth, are covered in the agreement. And assuming that agreement is one that goes forward, everything that's stated in this report is correct. It pays for itself.
good. Yeah.
So I have a question on, it says 352 acre-feet per year is the demand from Dana Reserve. And you have 500, NTSD had 500 acre-feet for future development. So I'm assuming the 352 comes out of that 500?
The 500 acre-feet per year was reserved for infill within the existing NCSD boundaries.
So the 352 is in addition.
yes, you can say it's in addition to it, but given the fact that we're importing 2,500 acre feet per year, and we're going to be using a lot less than that, even with the development, we still have a surplus of 600 or 700 acre feet per year after all of the infill and after development is complete.
Hey, does that answer the question? Okay, maybe. Okay.
I just
Christine.
want to say thank you to the committee for the heavy lifting on this. I didn't have a chance. I'm not the one who can deal with that project in South County. From what I read, I don't like it, but I'm glad to know that as far as water goes, they actually have enough for that.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Right.
There is a note of caution associated with this, because this deals only with the NCC district. It doesn't deal with the Mesa as a whole, which is still in decline. So this may be misread by some people as saying everything's hunky-dory in the Napoleon Mesa at the NNA area, natural Napoleon Mesa management area. And I believe Ed said that the key wells index, in spite of this large rain, has only showed a small increase this year. When they were, I think Ed was saying that they expected more. Right?
Well, intuitively, you'd expect more.
Yeah,
You'd expect to be a swamp by now, but I think the key well index went from the previous year of around 7 feet up to around 17 feet as a result of the rains. And the key well index is measured in April. I don't know how much we had after that, but as of April, it was up to 17 feet from 7 the previous year.
And I, within that context, I feel like the ad hoc committee's report does a good job of being very narrow in what they are in alignment with, which I think allows for that broader conversation and concern.
Yes, we had extensive conversations about other related issues on the Mesa and sub-Mesa. But they weren't a part of the project, and therefore they're not. They shouldn't be addressed in the project.
Right, okay. Any other further questions or comments? Otherwise, we're getting to the point where we can just receive and file as a body, or we can, if there's interest in a motion to forward these comments with a cover letter to the Board of Supervisors.
I would
Eric.
suggest that for now we receive and file, and then in November, we revisit the possibility of forwarding it in a motion. We don't yet know whether the planning commission will make changes to the project. So it could be, I think the assurance it gives is probably going to still be valid, whatever the planning commission does, but between the applicant, the planning commission, et cetera, there is a possibility it will be a somewhat different project. And so this letter may be in some ways obsolete at that point. So I would simply suggest we receive and file now and tentatively put a motion to forward it to the supervisors after the planning commission is active.
Right, and so remind me, so the planning commission got postponed until
October 23rd and 24th is their decision-making meeting.
Okay. Does that sound reasonable and kind of re-agendize for a check-in in November?
And since our bylaws don't have us advising the planning commission, the letter to the supervisors, it's premature until the planning commission basically tells them what project they're looking at.
Okay, any other,
We
sorry, go
can
ahead.
just make some, if the ad hoc committee wants to make some changes after that, they feel like they could still do that. And
That's right. So
take
ad
it up
hoc
again.
committee is not disbanded at this point. So if there's other discussions between.
Hang in there.
It can last for 6 months without coming out of the ground.
Good point.
And it was, I think, created in June, so it needs to be done by December.
All right. Or renewed, I suppose. Any other thoughts or comments on that? Otherwise, I'm seeing kind of a receive and file with gratitude for now and re-agendize in November for check-in and possible action.
A second.
I don't think that'll be a motion at this point, right? I don't think we need a motion to just receive and file.
I don't,
I didn't put it out as a motion, but if we need a motion, I could make it that.
Well, this just says receive an update. That's what our.
And consider action. So we've received an update and we'll, yeah, perfect. Great, thank you.
then you make the agenda and you can put it back on.
And there we go.
All right.
All right, I hear consensus to put it back on again as needed. All right, well, thank you very much for that item. All right, and then our next discussion item here is to receive an update from the ad hoc committee on bylaws and consider action. And so within this piece is a redlined discussion. Do you want to introduce this item? Do you want me to talk through it?
Sure.
Okay, and I'll, so did we put in here who's on our committee? Okay. Terrific. Okay, so the main things here, there was a discussion about the purposes of the committee, and we did review that in particular, and in the end decided that there was enough flexibility to allow us to comment on both on policies, decisions, but also on projects and programs. And so we did not recommend changes to Article 1. Within the membership, there were three groups that were not like the others. And in there was a bit of a discussion about that these all have outside ways to have discussion on their water supplies, and they have not been regular participants in these meetings. Did you get a chance to reach out to them to give them a heads up?
I will be doing that, assuming this moves forward.
Yeah, if that moves forward. So we'll let them know. And again, if we need to change something back, we always can. So that was the proposal there. And then just updates to the numbering. Oh, there was an archaic, outdated note about the changes from September of 2020. One substantive change was on page 2 of 5, item 4, about the at-large membership. It had been noted as production. Some applicants engaged in production agriculture, and we felt like that was limiting. And so, because that kind of implied somebody like in the field versus ag, in the agriculture industry was the terminology we came up with. Considered ag business, et cetera. Ag industry seems to be more in keeping with other types of things. And then we determined that the members that are the at-large or the alternate should be residents of San Luis Obispo County. We considered saying that across the board should be members of the residents of the county, but determined that the other bodies like the Golden State and Farm Bureau, et cetera, ought to be able to pick their own members wherever they live. So went with the one we would influence. And then added on page 3, note 14, if a member cannot attend a meeting, that they should be in contact with their alternate. So really trying to make sure that alternates are plugged in and attending in the absence. It's not a particularly binding statement, but we hope that everyone does that. And then that was that for meetings. Under officers, we were just cleaning up about electing the chairperson and vice chairperson, and then clarifying that the secretary is County Public Works staff assigned by that director as needed. And I think those are the changes we came up with. Any other explanations? Yeah, Ed.
I thought I heard earlier somebody said something about if people couldn't get the internet and Zoom working, we couldn't have a meeting.
Yes.
I don't see anything like that in the bylaws.
Yeah, I think that's actually Brown Act. I think that's state law because we're a Brown Act body. And so if we've advertised access in a particular way, that we need to have that be part of our notification.
So the Brown Act is referenced in.
Yeah, the Brown Act is just state law, so.
It's not referenced in.
No.
My understanding is that we need to do it if we have promised to do it. In other words,
Yes.
not every right body will be making online participation available, but if our agenda says we will, then we have to.
Correct. Yes, that's correct.
Yep.
Thank you, Eric. Yeah,
And I don't know that the bylaws should get into that angle.
yeah, I agree. It's, you
Then we'd
know,
have to update them every time the law changed. Sorry to
yeah,
interrupt.
yeah. Well, right. And there's obviously a whole bunch of laws that we have to abide by. So these are specific, but good point. Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion to approve these bylaw amendments. Questions, comments?
Can a committee member make a move motion?
Absolutely.
All right, well, we met several times by Zoom. We had several meetings and went back and forth and finally agreed at our last meeting last week that these were about the best we could do and we were ready to bring it to the full committee. And hearing no arguments on that, I move to accept the amendments to our bylaws as presented today.
I will second.
Thank
Now,
you.
does this go from here to the county board of supervisors for reaffirmation?
Yes,
Yeah,
So we're
it-
not actually making the changes, we're requesting the changes.
recommending approval by the board.
That's my motion.
yeah, thank you. I always forget that. I
Yeah.
always forget that part. And it has been reviewed by county council already, so
Right.
we don't anticipate other
So
sticking
we will
points.
probably see it on a board consent agenda.
Yeah, hopefully that's true.
Yeah.
Then it will be in effect.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, thank you for that clarification. All right, voice vote? Voice vote? All in favor of recommending the changes as proposed for the bylaws, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, any abstentions? All right, motion carries. Thanks, everyone. Efficient. Okay,
So this ad hoc committee is put to bed before the 6 months expires.
oh yeah, right, because we did that a few months ago. Thank you.
So we're officially disbanded.
Yes, disbanded.
We can form new bands.
Until next time.
Until next time, then it would be a reforming of it. All right, let's go.
Hold on, issues.
We're gonna go through the ongoing updates. Thanks as always for compiling those. I'm just gonna pause at each one and see if there's a discussion or comment. Rain and reservoir report. Drought updates. Or lack thereof. Groundwater basin management efforts.
These were posted separately, so they are online.
Yeah, you want to
Yeah,
chime in on that, Tom?
yes, so probably most of you are aware regarding the Paso Basin that the county grand jury issued a report back on June 23rd entitled, "Can one wet year wash away the Paso Robles Basin's water worries?" And I would commend it to reading because I thought it was a very thoughtful summary. And having read it, I thought, gee, that for a group of people who volunteer to be on a grand jury, some of them, or many of them perhaps, seem to be very knowledgeable about water issues, because I thought it was very comprehensive and seemed to capture all the issues. The report asked that 3 entities respond: the county, which responded a couple weeks ago, and the county's response is up on the website. And also the Paso Basin Coordinating Committee has to respond, as well as the Shandon, thank you, Shannon San Juan Water District. They have 90 days, so their responses are not due till later this month. So
They've been turned in?
Oh, have they? Oh, okay, they weren't up on the grand jury website when I
They're
looked the other day.
available to read.
They should be on our website.
Okay, good.
So anyway, I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. And I thought one last thing, I thought the county's response was thoughtful, although it made clear that for solving some of the issues, the timelines are still a little fuzzy. I didn't see any clear commitments, and I can understand, for the Paso Basin, it's not only the county, but these other entities that have to cooperate, so on and so forth.
So, and I'm just gonna, we'll take questions or comments, but I do want to just remark that as Tom was reviewing it, a lot of what he was looking at also are there county-wide kind of policy water resources issues that we might want to bring back to WRAC, but otherwise, as this body, it does not really have a role in the basin management itself. So, so that was kind of the purpose of the update. David, then Christine.
Well, we do in Paso Basin because the county's a partner, right? I was amazed the fact last year of drought, when the state claimed the basin was in compliance, it took out more water that year than it's ever taken out before. And I was wondering, Steve over there might have some things on his basin. How do the rules are that once your plan is in, you're meant to show progress. And I'm wondering whether that progress is publicly known. That is, can you actually see it actually doing anything to make things better? That's a question. Steve, I have an answer to that.
Well, it's a little discouraging because it takes so long for everything to happen, and there's several groups involved in every ounce of progress. But there are a whole bunch of initiatives that will take time to do, and that includes maybe more water out of silliness, levies, putting in gates, because first it has to get transferred to the county or the city. Then we've got to do a retrofit, or maybe we have to do retrofit first on the dam, and then we put the gates, and that's kind of environmental impact. So that's just one piece of the many pieces that are out there. And a lot of districts and agencies are already negotiating how you enforce a cutback. And at least in our district, we'd love to see them battle it out and figure out how it's done before we invent it ourselves. So that's the process. It's not it's not encouraging if you just go over and see what's happening. Thank you.
Christine.
I appreciate him bringing this to us. And the New Times had an opinion piece. The jury is in, and it is a overview, if you will, hitting highlights of the grand jury report. And it is clear that people continue to drill more wells. People continue to drill and pump more water. And it seems like, it may take years and years to get a new dam or raise it or not do it, or, all of that. We can't wait for that. And this whole idea of importing water, very few people seem to be saying the first thing when you are in a hole is to stop digging. And stop pumping would be the first thing. And there ought to be, in my opinion, and this would be policy questions that I think is one reason we should have Sigma on our agenda, that we've been told we can't discuss it, but we do advise the board, and they do have a power in voting on Sigma in this county. And that we should be talking about Sigma because it's not just in our county, but it's across the state that they're seeing the failure of Sigma. And the grand jury report makes that clear, and that's grand jury for our county, but it's clear that this is happening across the state. And yet across the state, people are drilling hundreds of wells still and pumping huge amounts of water, and nobody's cutting back on that water or cutting back and making policies for not drilling. So I'm glad that you brought it up. I had brought this article to make sure that we did discuss this, and I still believe that Sigma should be an ongoing update in one way or another. I saw an agenda report for 2018 from the Zone 9. It was on our Zone 9 agenda to discuss it, and I think that it could be like an ongoing update. County might not have anything new, but I think it's something that we need to stay aware of, and it's important that we as Water Committee pay attention to this on a regular basis.
And it is an ongoing update, but you mean for, maybe further discussion.
Sigma compliance, basically.
No, there's no portion, there's no.
Groundwater basin management efforts
Groundwater
is,
basin, okay, but it doesn't even mention Sigma in there, there's no mention in that whole thing right there. The groundwater basin is a lot of, but they're not all under Sigma. But yeah, groundwater, of course.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right.
We need to pay more attention.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Steve.
So I just would say that I'm pretty sure Sigma mandates 5-year periods that they have to report on. I mean, obviously, you're not gonna. That's very difficult, especially if, you know, a very wonderful rainfall year like we just had. Who knows what's gonna follow? So the 5-year period is in there, and they basically have to show that they're making progress. Most of that progress is gonna be shown through monitoring wells, so monitoring wells. The county does have a moratorium on any new irrigation wells. I mean, I've lived up there for almost 35 years now, and been an irrigator in the basin. And in order to drill a well, it has to be illegal. There's no new wells. You can drill a second well that's actually the same size and depth if your well collapses or something like that. But you can't drill new wells. So anybody who's doing that is breaking the law. So I wouldn't say that they're drilling hundreds of wells, but that's just not happening there. There are efforts within the county to encourage a process where the fees to extract water, and then with the encouragement for some people that are irrigators who would maybe like to retire for some period of time, whether it's 5 or 10 years, but not lose the right to irrigate, but stop irrigating and receive some sort of payment funds. There are schemes that are going forward. All of these are very complicated. Because people's livelihoods are on the line. On the property tax implications and all kinds of things. But there are definitely a number of different fronts that are being attacked right now to try to build basin. I think everybody realizes that groundwater is very precious to everybody. Pumping into living is not a solution. So there are serious efforts being made. But like I say, there are 5-year look backs. And I do believe that probably California Water Resources is going to look at those reports with a very close eye to see the progress.
Thank you. Yes, that's true. Steve.
One of the interesting things this last year when we had all the rains was that the governor's office allowed pumping to put it on fallow fields, percolate and so forth. It's a great idea, but the one thing you couldn't do is put it in your empty reservoirs. So there was an opportunity for a lot more water to be stored in at least the Vasco Basin, because there were empty reservoirs all over the place, and that wasn't one of the allowed places to put it.
Which is, but that's state law.
That's state law, but it's just, you know,
yeah.
This is a learn by doing operation, and we'll get better at it.
Yeah. Yeah, good point, because could get a lot more rain again this winter. It'd be nice to have ways to be effective, capture it effectively. Yeah, thanks. All right, so thank you for that. Thank you for the discussion, and we'll kind of keep on the pulse here. Let's see, next item, integrated regional water management. Any updates there? It was in the report. Okay, master water report update. I think we'll get that next November, December.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the plan, December.
State water project. Big allocation. The desal project. Christine.
Yes, I have a comment on that. The first long sentence says that desal can provide safe, long-term, drought-proof, resilient water supply. I think if our county is going to go forward with even looking at this, and they need to write into this desal plan right now, safe, long-term, highly energy requirement, high energy requirements, environmental damage from we have to be a little clearer here that there are two big stumbling blocks always with desal, and that's the energy requirement and how to dispose of concentrated brine, which kills off everything out in the oceans and makes dead zones and all. And so if we're going to have an executable solution and logistics plan, I think that it's not just safe, highly energy intensive. It's a really valuable main point to be aware of as part of that plan. So that just kind of caught my attention.
I appreciate that, and I think we could probably take out some of that editorial remarks that are not necessarily, that do seem to be selling points rather than neutral information. Yes. Well said, and we'll fix that for next time. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, good point. All right. Reading with a critical eye. Eric.
I'm waiting for H.
Thank you. I am on H. Perfect. Various county water programs, policies, and ordinances.
Comment about state law. The board will give us an opportunity to address issues with the state laws because they will be next Tuesday re-examining their state legislative platform. So comments relating to such issues will be very, very germane. I think a lot of the emphasis is likely to be, and I haven't seen the item documents yet, I just had a chance to see that it will be on the agenda, so I don't know whether it's recommended, but I know there is quite a bit of back and forth about should the GAN, the Prop 13 limit of 2/3, needing a 2/3 vote for a local revenue measure remain for everything except schools where it was changed, or should it go to 55 across the board for everything? That will probably come up for discussion, and of course that would reference water if it became kind of a universal thing. And I'm hearing arguments on all sides of that, but if you have an opinion, that could be germane. I think my focus is going to be end, gut, and amend, because process-wise, the State Water Resources Control Board was just neutered by SB 846 in 72 hours when a bill on the sale of alcoholic beverages became a bill to essentially ramrod all the state process relative to Diablo relicensing, including the discharge that has been essentially an outlier against state law for a couple of decades now, and just got another 5 years because the State Water Resources Control Board believed its hands were tied. But they did no analysis on this, and neither did the legislature because of gut and amend. I might accept a law like this if it had been through the proper committee process with hearings all along the way, but it wasn't. It was ramrodded and apparently a thug governor was essentially threatening legislators' bills if they didn't pass it. So under that pressure, it passed because of gut and amend. So that's going to be my focus next Tuesday. But if other people have other issues, I probably won't get to them because of that. Thank you. So a good idea to be there.
Thank you. Just on the edge of germane. Okay, and then any other open reporting on water conservation opportunities and information? Anything else? All right. Just briefly, we do show the future agenda items. We have 2 great meetings for November and December, and so we decided to kind of focus our participation on those 2 meetings and not have an October meeting. So from in November, the Regional Housing Infrastructure Plan framework, it was a plan, then it got demoted to a framework. slow cog, sorry. So that's a slow cog, mostly about transportation, but for the first time, they took into account water and water resources as a component of considering where are likely places that housing could be placed in our county, in our region. So super relevant to us and eventually to the master water report. And then Blaine Reilly will provide an update on the groundwater sustainability efforts, specifically about the evapotranspiration tracking pilot project. And then we have a December meeting, probably we usually skip January as well. So that is our agenda planning. If there's anything else, again, that you want presented or have a potential speaker, we'll be mapping out the spring agenda and have a little bit of space in the fall agendas if needed.
We have 2 at-large agriculture applications to look at in November as well.
Oh, thank you. So those will be considered for recommendation, go to the supervisor. So yeah. And are there other at-large positions that we're meeting that would be good? Yeah, you still need an alternate. So environmental at large, if you know somebody who would be an alternate. Yeah, so and actually agriculture, we could use some agriculture at large alternates as well. So so yeah, we can take care of those. All right, and then lastly, any public comment for items not on the agenda, but within the purview of this committee? Anybody, public? No?
Dolores has.
Oh, Dolores, sorry.
So just a little update from the Slow Beaker Brigade.
Oh, yeah.
About our group a couple of times here. You might have seen in the local press that beaver dams that we're slowly coming to fruition after the storms were being damaged by ATV riders. And luckily that situation has changed. So we've been cordoning off the areas where the dams are, and for the most part, ATV riders are respecting that, and the beavers are making a comeback. So 3 dams that we know of in Atascadero that are doing quite well. At slowbeaverbrigade.com, you can see some webcam footage of some wonderful activity by the beavers, and one in Templeton that we haven't been out to see, but here the one by the Vineyard Bridge is complete now. So those beavers are busy pulling the water.
As they say.
And we also are addressing the presence of Phragmites common reed, which is a water sucker out of our local waterways, and having some success with the pilot project of removing the Phragmites. So also trying to get the community to learn about the proposed RV storage lot at the Salinas River in Atascadero. And in this room, on the same day as the first day of the planning commission's meeting on data reserve in the evening, Ben Goldfarb, who wrote Eager, why beavers and why they matter, and the new book out regarding noise. But he'll be speaking here and doing book signing in this room. Plenty happening around beavers and water.
Great, thank you for that. All right, any others?
Yeah.
Brendan.
Nick, put you on the spot. That ledge update you emailed me, was that for the committee?
Yeah, you can do it next time because a lot of those are still.
Okay. Okay, maybe we'll chat about, maybe we'll have, Nick sent a detailed legislative update of water items at the legislature.
Yeah.
It was late, yes.
And is it something that we would want to distribute to members in case there is action for individuals that would influence legislation?
Knowledge of what's going on with the state.
Okay.
You might not be aware.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's helpful
I'll
to
upload
send
it
out.
to this meeting as just a.
Because otherwise, if we don't
correspondence
meet
and then-
till November, I mean, it'll be good to find out what happens, but in terms of action. So thanks, Nick. Appreciate that. David.
Just getting back to future things, I'd like to hear what the Los Angeles groundwater basin is doing. They drilled a new well and it turned out that I asked the people who were drilling it where it was going. It was going into a formation that's never been part of the aquifer before on the far southeast of town. And I'd like to know what's going on there, you know, whatever the situation is in terms of how far the saltwater weight has gone, that kind of thing. They've got lots of nice reporting, by the way, they're very good on that, but I think the public would like to see what exactly happening underneath Los Osos a little bit more broadly.
Are you talking about the broader Senate area or farther?
It's on Oak View, they put a well there at the South Bay Boulevard and Oak View, they put in a well. And it doesn't go into Trust Brothers, it goes the next layer down, which is unusual. But
Is that the CSD?
yeah, like the community services district.
All right, there's your guy right there.
All right, you guys,
Yeah.
we'll talk after the fact. At this point, we're gonna go ahead and,
I've got a question, if you can hear me.
sorry, Jim, go ahead.
Yes, I heard only part of the Dana Reserve update. So my question does include Dana Reserve. The question that I have is, did the ad hoc committee look at the water supply that's contingent on state water allocations? Because before the drought ended, cities like Coalinga were being denied additional water from the state. And the question then comes up, if Santa Maria doesn't get state allocation in a future drought, does that then allow them to have a force majeure and eliminate the water that's being supplied to Napomo Mesa?
Let's get a brief answer, and then otherwise, because we're just about to adjourn, I would otherwise kind of take that under, if it's a longer conversation, under advisement for our ad hoc. Linda, something brief?
I remember the conversation was that should something happen to state water, the Santa Maria water is coming from the Santa Maria groundwater basin, which is in very good health. Isn't that correct?
Santa Maria has 3 sources of water: groundwater, Twitchell water, and state water. Last year, their allocation for state water was 5%. This coming year, it's 100%. What's imported to Napomo is a blend. Whatever the people in the residents of Santa Maria get, we get, and it's a blend. So in the past, it's been only 5% state water, and in the future, it'll be more state water. But if the state water was 0, it still does not affect the amount of water that is available to folks.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim, and I'm sorry I missed your raising your hand earlier, so I'm glad you. So I'm gonna. All right.
We haven't decided anything on it.
Excellent. All right. And with that, we're going to adjourn this meeting until our next regularly scheduled meeting, November 1st, right here, 1:30 in the library community room. Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Thanks for your patience on the late start.